Hey everyone, it's Mark. This is my recap for Pokemon Journeys episode 26, which was called Hot Magikarp, Crown Yourself Slowking. This was the 1111th episode of the Pokemon anime, and like it says in the thumbnail of this video, what in the world did we just watch? This was the first episode that was ever split into two different segments, and I'm not sure which one was crazier. Let's go through the highlights and get into the review. The episode starts at Team Rocket's underground base with Jessie reading a magazine. Notice anything about the magazine that she's reading? That's Diantha on the cover. We know Diantha is a famous actress, so it's no surprise that Jessie would be reading something with her on the cover. This is actually the second time Jessie reading something has included a little Easter egg after she was reading in a Alola newspaper with Mallow's Family Restaurant earlier in Pokemon Journeys. Anyways, Team Rocket is only here to set up this episode. They say they are going to use their free time to go train, which I actually would have been interested in seeing if they actually had any of their own Pokemon this series, but instead we just get a Magikarp and a Slowking from their gacha machine. Seriously, if this machine is supposed to give them powerful Pokemon to help carry out evil, what is the point in having a Magikarp be one of the Pokemon in there? I'm already using too much logic to analyze this episode. James breaks the fourth wall by announcing this episode as a 2-for-1 special, and that's it for this intro. It's obvious that the anime was promoting this episode as a 2-for-1, but is that actually a good thing that they should be promoting? I'll talk more about this later in the review. Ash and Go are at Cerise Park, and Go says he's going to enter the Magikarp high jump tournament with the Lord Magikarp he caught in Sinnoh, and we immediately go into a crazy training montage. This was one of the many ridiculous scenes that took place in this episode, and it gave us some wild images. Another Easter egg worth pointing out is that many of the training drills Magikarp was doing were references to the mobile game, Pokemon Magikarp Jump. This explains the Boldore that was part of this training montage, so no, unfortunately it was not a cameo appearance by Ash's Boldore. At least, it's not very likely that it was his. Just like that, we skip to the semifinals of the high jump competition. Go wins, which sets up a match in the finals against the eccentric 9-time defending champ, which is this guy and his shiny Magikarp. He taunts Go by saying he hasn't really been trying so far, and Go responds by revealing that his Magikarp was actually wearing weights in the rounds leading up to the final. I can't really give it justice just how over the top this whole thing was, but I liked how this clearly ridiculous activity was backed up with some serious music, including the Sword and Shield Gym Leader theme, which came up multiple times throughout this episode. The first segment of the episode ends with Go's Magikarp jumping out of the atmosphere, and Ash reads a eulogy for it after Go loses the competition. It's also worth mentioning that I loved Reboot's facial expressions and general attitude throughout this entire segment, since it seemed to be the only one who realized how ridiculous this whole thing was. The second segment takes place on an island full of Slowpoke. The scene of everyone walking up the island made me wonder if Ash and Go are going to visit the Isle of Armor or the Crown Tundra at some point. I'm actually surprised that they haven't visited the Isle of Armor already, since that would have tied in perfectly to the Sword and Shield DLC. Anyways, back to the lunacy that is this episode, as Go fails to catch a Slowking that appears out of nowhere, before Ash lets it eat some of his noodles. This causes Slowking to swap its Shelter Head with Ash's cup of noodles, and what happens next gets my pick as the weirdest moment of this entire episode. Apparently, whoever wears this Shelter Head ends up getting possessed by it, or something like that, and we get to see Ash become Yadoking, the Slowpoke Master. Again, I really can't do this part justice just by explaining it, it's too ridiculous for me to even describe. I have absolutely no idea what the anime production team was thinking of when they created this episode, and I honestly could not believe what I was watching. Eventually, the Shelter Head gets swapped around between Ash, Go, Pikachu, and Reboot, before eventually Go's Magikarp returns from orbit to crash land on the island, which causes the Shelter Head to return atop Slowking's head. Okay. The episode ends back where it began, inside Team Rocket's hideout. We see a very similar scene play out, but it's worth pointing out the two small Sun and Moon references in this clip, with Meowth and Wobbuffet playing with a truck that looks exactly like their Beware-themed food truck, and James polishing his Pokeball collection that he kept in their Alolan hideout. Anyways, when it gets to the point that James has to answer the door again, it's actually the Magikarp High Jump champion, and just as the Sword and Shield Gym Leader music kicks in again, James shuts the door on him, finally bringing this insanity to a close. I'm giving this episode a 4 out of 10 rating. This was one of the hardest episodes to rate in my opinion. It was arguably more different than any other episode in the history of the Pokemon anime, so I'm really unsure how to feel about it. On the one hand, the over-the-top ridiculousness made me laugh a lot, but I'm not sure if that's because it was actually funny or I just could not believe what I was seeing. Do I think that they should ever split an episode up like this again into 2 segments? No. I don't like having 2 short stories instead of 1, especially when we remember how last week's episode could have easily taken up 2 full episodes. It was surprising to me that the anime promoted this week as a 2-for-1 special, since I don't know if that's actually something I'd promote as a special event. This week was the epitome of filler, and so even though it had plenty of interesting moments, ultimately I don't think it added much to the series. For that, I can't give it a rating higher than 4. Things will be back to normal next week, as we'll get to see some developments involving the World Coronation series. Ash and Go look like they'll be returning to Galar, and we'll meet Sonia this time. Sonia is one of my favorite Sword and Shield characters, so I'm really glad she'll be in the anime. My guess is that she'll play a similar role to the one she had in the games, which will be involving the Darkest Day storyline, with Ash and Go taking the place of the 2 heroes. Potentially even more exciting is the return of Leon next week, as we'll get to see one of his masterclass battles against Raihan. Even though this seems like a fairly predictable battle that will just be a showcase for Leon and his Charizard, I'm interested in seeing Raihan introduced as a character, and I think their battle will be excellent as well. Ash may not use Dynamax or Gigantamax that much in this series, so I think battles like this are a good way to show off this new style of battling. That's all I've got for this week. I'm still trying to figure out what was going on in this episode, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts about this week, as well as your predictions for the next episode in the comments section. Drop a like on this video, and please subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys next time.